Best gift you've brought us all night.
I can't believe he showed up.
So Bruce Wayne, huh? If it's all the same to you, I'll stick to Batman.
No, no.
You sound scared, Crane. Get used to it.
The whole world knows. What now?
Prepare the Nightfall Protocol.
Are you sure?
There's no other way, Alfred.
It needs voice confirmation.
Martha.
Very good, Master Bruce. You can be sure your instructions will be followed. The Batwing is on its way to the rendezvous point.
Alright, so we just beat the bad guy. We'll enact the Nightfall Protocol here in a second. We've officially beat everything, yeah. I just want to watch this happen, because fuck it, why not? I think this is the first time I've ever actually 100%ed a game, though. I'm not really much of a completionist when it comes down to it, but I don't know. I felt like just wanted to show you guys something kind of neat, I suppose. And I heard that there was an alternate ending if you 100% of the game. Also, I never actually have defeated the Riddler completely. I never felt like actually doing all of the sorry. I never felt like doing all of the Riddler trophies. There we are. So we're going to go in GCPD and we're going to see what people say, because I want to see some reactions to finding out it's Bruce Wayne. I think that would be kind of neat.
See you back here, Batman. I knew you wouldn't give up.
Yeah.
Taking that mask off was a big mistake. Now you're just a man.
Wait, oh, I want to talk to Jack Ryder. I'm sure he's pretty pissed he didn't get the exclusive.
There you are. Secret identity revealed, huh? You want to talk about it? On television? So you don't usually invite me to the Wayne Manor Christmas ball, but we're like old war buddies now, right? Taking on Deacon Blackfire together?
Also, we're talking shit about my parents. Screw you. Alright, there's a couple people in the lockup that I haven't spoken to yet.
Mindless inanities. It is beneath my brilliance to be cooped up with one so clearly insane.
Pig feels sick.
You were never going to
No
win,
riddles.
Enigma.
No
Tut-tut, Batman.
tricks.
In your incessant quest for justice, you've just deprived this city of its one true genius.
I'm sure we'll cope.
Cope, yes, but also regress. My puzzles are the whetstone with which to sharpen your intellect. Keep me in here and let your mind turn to mush. It will be all the easier when we reconvene.
Doesn't look like we're going to be reconvening anything. That's a Scarecrow right there. I doubt that I'll be able to talk to him. Yeah, it's not looking like it. No.
I
He's
think Ivy tried
closed
to
off.
brainwash me with those pheromones of hers.
So Poison Ivy's actually dead.
I resisted.
Shit.
Tim and your dad are fine. They're being picked up from the asylum and taken to the mainland.
I spoke to them a moment ago. Thanks, Bruce. It's funny. I was waiting for Dad to do his protective father bit. I had it all ready in my head what I was gonna say. But he didn't go there. He just told me that he loved me and that he was proud. Maybe he hit his head.
Maybe he's starting to see you. The real you.
What are you going to do, Bruce?
Finish it.
Good. I'm just getting warmed up.
Yeah, keep warming up. Well, I think that's about it. I'm trying to think of anybody else that we can talk to. But I don't think that is really the case. This is depressing, man. I mean, I don't know. Like, I didn't think I was going to feel this way, but the Arkham games are special to me. I'm not going to give all my opinions right now, but like Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, for that matter, are two of my favorite games of all time. Like, they're probably both in like the top 15, top 20.
Guess that's what happens when you get your parents.
You know, so, and I've always really loved Batman, and it's one of the few superheroes that I really actually keep any sort of track of, and I watched the animated series all the time when I was little. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess now's the time to enact the Nightfall Protocol, so I'll see you guys in a second. Alright, here we go.
It's done. Gotham is safe.
Thank you, Bruce. For everything.
Goodbye, Jim.
All units be advised. The major threats have been eliminated. It's time to roll out and take our city back.
This is Vicky Vale for GCN reporting live outside Wayne Manor, following the dramatic unmasking of billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. That's him! Are you still rolling?
Are you sure you want to do this, Master Bruce?
I've got to. It's the only way to protect them.
Very well.
We just saw Bruce Wayne, now known to be the masked vigilante Batman, enter his home, refusing to come.
This is how it happened. This is how the Batman died. A friend once told me that criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. That the only way to beat them was to give them something to be scared of. I understand now. As his world grew darker, so did ours. When his war ended, our lives could begin again. He set us free. To live. To love. There was an inquest, of course. Hundreds of suspects. Who killed Bruce Wayne? I guess we'll never know for sure. So what's next? Criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. What happens when they have nothing to be scared of? Who will protect Gotham now that the Batman is dead?
Hey. Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Help me!
No one's coming, lady. Take his wallet. Hey, freak! Maybe you missed the news! Batman's dead! That look don't scare us no more! What the hell?
Alright, well, that was the end to Batman, the Arkham Knight. God, I have a lot of opinions on this game. I'm not really sure where to start exactly. I guess kind of recapping the ending there. Obviously, there was a direct sort of relation to the two parents being mugged and all of that, to Bruce Wayne and that whole deal. And in all honesty, one second. I was going to say, in all honesty, I'm not really sure how I want to think about that ending, that sort of Protocol 10 ending. It seems kind of obvious that Bruce Wayne isn't actually dead, and because of that, it's hard to really say where they're going with this. I mean, Rocksteady said that this was going to be the last game they developed for the Batman series, but that having been said, WB did develop a game on their own with Arkham Origins, I guess to kind of bridge a gap between the two because it was going to take longer. So I don't know. I don't know really where this series is going to go. Maybe it's done here, but Batman is such a rich and deep franchise that they really can continue if they wanted to, and with most games I would probably say I don't want them to do that, but with Batman, I don't know if I necessarily have a problem. Obviously, they can't go on from this point unless they wanted to do like a game based off of Red Hood, or potentially have Dick Grayson take over the cowl, which happened in the comics. There are a couple of different ways they can go with it, or maybe they can do another prequel like they did with Origins, which is probably what they'd end up doing. I wouldn't be surprised, at least. Yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities if they were to want to continue it just with WB. The only problem is that WB kind of has proven that they don't really seem to give a shit about PC. But, you know, whatever. That's not really the point. We're talking about the story. We're not really talking about development. Also, I really like all the art they're showing right now from Asylum. That's a nice little touch they decided to add into it. Regarding my feelings on this franchise ending, if it actually does, that would be kind of sad, honestly. I touched on it a little bit before the credits. But, you know, the Arkham franchise is one of my favorite game series of the last decade or so. You know, there's a couple that I truly do love. You know, Mass Effect is one of them. Assassin's Creed was one of them until probably Revelations, but before that I thought it was great. You know, games like that I've always really enjoyed, and I liked seeing them continue, and this was certainly another one of them. But you know, things can end, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I appreciate that Rocksteady decided to kind of say, okay, no, this is our story, this is where it's going to end, and we're happy with that. By the way, I just want to touch on it again. They fucking got Mark Hamill to voice the Joker again, which I just can't believe they did, because he said he was done after Arkham City, flat out. And here he is again, and I think that's really cool. Now, regarding Red Hood and the Arkham Knight, some people might be a little bit confused over Jason Todd and his whole, you know, like coming back from the dead sort of thing. The Joker said he lied about that. Now, if I'm not mistaken, in the comics, I believe he was brought back to life by Ra's al Ghul and the Lazarus Pit. Now, maybe they just decided that would take too long to go into, and Ra's he was from the last game, and we're not focusing on that storyline anymore, so we're just going to say the Joker lied. which is just a simpler way of going about it. There was other aspects to the story that they were focusing on, so that might have kind of muddied things up, and it would have taken too much time, so they just wanted to skip over it, which is understandable. Just to touch on it for a brief second, I know a lot of people shit on Arkham City, but I'm not quite sure why. Like, I enjoyed Arkham City almost as much as I did Asylum. I probably would put it just a little bit lower than Asylum, but it was right there. But speaking of, like, ranking, I actually would argue that this is probably my least favorite in the entire series, even behind Origins. My personal opinion is that Origins actually did have the best story of the group. It's hard to really say that. I feel like, this might sound weird, but I feel like the writing was the best in Asylum, but the story itself was the best in Origins. If that might not make sense. But I don't know. There's just, like, a difference to it. And a key reason why I feel that way about Knight being one of my least favorite is that I feel as though every single game in the series has had its own tone, its own attitude, its own theming. Asylum had sort of a Halloween-esque sort of theming to it. Felt very, like, kind of ominous and creepy and weird. You were in a fucking insane asylum, so that would make sense. Arkham City, on the other hand, felt like it was a almost Hollywood version of the Batman games, but not to the point where it was all out and you lost respect for it. It just decided to involve a lot more villains, but it did it in a tactful way, and it kept it kind of in a sort of continuous storyline. Like, they never kind of, dipped back and forth. They focused on one villain for a little bit, they went on to another one, and then went on to another one, and so on and so forth. There was the Penguin, there was Mr. Freeze, there was Ra's al Ghul, there was Hugo Strange, the Joker. They managed to fit all of these villains into that game, yet I didn't feel like there was a major overload. Somehow. I don't know how, but I felt like they did it very well. They managed to incorporate all of these characters from the lore, but not feel like it was, like, they still managed to flesh it out enough to where I didn't feel like anybody was getting too much screen time or not enough. I feel like everybody got the exact amount they should have. Now, Arkham Knight, on the other hand, which is kind of funny, is that it only really focused on two villains for the most part, Jason Todd and Scarecrow. Everybody else was quite clearly like a side mission sort of guy. And I'm not necessarily against that. Like, I just feel as though the side missions didn't have quite as much weight, and the main storyline didn't feel as though it had enough variance. It felt like it was, it should have been focused on what it was focused on. It just felt like they incorporated less dynamic characters into the main storyline. People like Simon Stagg, which is fine. It's just, you have people like that, and you really only have the Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight, who got the most face time. And I don't know, just personal preference maybe, but I felt as though it could have used a little bit more, I guess, what would be the right word? Diversity is the word I was thinking of. And granted, it did have a lot of villains in the side missions, but once again, the side missions felt way more like side missions in this game than they did in Arkham City. And maybe that's just me looking back at Arkham City through rose-colored glasses, or lenses. I don't know which one it is. Whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. The point is that I feel like I recall Arkham City having a little bit more weight to each of their side missions, whereas in this one, it was like, okay, go look at this thing. Okay, now you got to look at 6 more of those things, or go collect this, go destroy that. It was kind of just the same thing over and over, and it was a very formulaic sort of deal going on, and that made it feel less, I don't know. Made it feel, I already said it, it made it feel like it had less weight to it. And I know that stuff did exist in City, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I guess I just didn't notice it as much. Because I know it was there. I'm thinking back at it, and, you had those with Hush and the characters with their faces cut off and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off on this topic. I really don't know what to say on that. But anyway, nonetheless, I still enjoyed Arkham Knight. Make no mistake, I'm not saying this was a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It was actually a very good game. I just don't feel like it had that same attitude the other three did. By the way, I didn't touch on Origins. Origins obviously had that sort of Christmas kind of feel. It took place on Christmas Eve, and it incorporated that a lot. If you go back and play Origins, you'll notice the music has that sort of theming, a lot of kind of jingle bells kind of sounding music to it. Particularly when Black Mask is revealed to actually be the Joker, which is one of my favorite scenes in the entire Arkham franchise, personally. So yeah, that's just little, going back to Arkham and Origins and talking about, the theming for that. Whereas this game was just kind of like, I almost felt as though it was just like, look at us, we're a video game with a big budget, And maybe I'm off base on that, but it just felt like it didn't have the same sort of passion behind it. I'm not really sure. I have all these feelings on it, but I can't really quite articulate them into completely logical points. And so I very well could just be too emotionally invested in the previous games. I don't want to act like that I'm completely unbiased and completely objective in this whole thing. Obviously, the graphics were nice most of the time. Whenever the game wasn't having a really hard time, rendering the textures, like mid cutscene or something. A lot of the time that would happen. Like signs not having, not even being capable of being read. Different things like that. Just really, really immersion breaking and kind of annoying, honestly. But otherwise, the game did look very nice. I think that its worst aspect was the texture quality, which, this might sound weird, but it's probably the least important part of graphics is the texture quality, especially in a third-person game, because you're going to be more focused on the shaders and the lighting and water effects and shadows and different things like that. You're not going to be quite as focused on texture unless you're like, as Total Biscuit would say, licking walls. Another thing is the Batmobile. I want to talk about that for a second, going on to gameplay. I mentioned it earlier, but the Batmobile, I feel as though it was given way too much screen time. That fucking thing was given like 50% of the gameplay, and don't get me wrong, it's not like a poorly designed game mechanic. It's just, it's repetitive as all hell, and I guess that's kind of what the Arkham games have always been, is just repetition. And I guess that's kind of just something everybody's accepted because the stories are generally really good. The feeling of the game is true to form for, the animated series, more so with Asylum, but still nonetheless with the other games and the comics and things like that. So I guess people have been okay with it, and also it kind of crafted a new fighting system that's very simplistic, but at the same time very satisfying. With the free flow kind of counter punch, where it's almost OP, but it's still a lot of fun, so nobody really gives a shit. Whereas with the tank, it's actually even more or I wouldn't say more simplistic, but equally as simplistic as the hand-to-hand combat, I would argue. Whereas, with hand-to-hand, it's like counter punch. In the tank battles, it's pretty much shoot, strafe. And I would actually probably, I'm gonna take back what I just said. The hand-to-hand combat's more complicated because at least there, you can stun people with your cape, you can jump over them, you can shoot them with your electrical charge gun, you can freeze blast them, you can do all these different things. Whereas in the tank, it's really pretty much just shooting and dodging. That's all it is the entire time, and it gets really boring really fucking quick. It's fun and it's satisfying. It's nice to see these things blow up, but I'm sorry, when it comes right down to it, even something that's really good, if you have it too often, it can become boring. And I'm sure that the developers, Rocksteady, I'm sure they really wanted to incorporate the Batmobile. I'm sure they put a lot of time into it, and so they wanted it to be a big part of the game. But when you're introducing a completely new mechanic that's going to take up that much time in the game, you probably shouldn't introduce it in the final game. Like, there's a lot of room for it to turn out poorly. Now, when I first saw the tank battle mechanic implemented, it was during like a preview. I think it was actually at E3 either 2013 or 2014. I'm pretty sure it was 2013 is the first time, but don't hold me to that. Regardless, the first time I saw it, I thought to myself, okay, that's nice and all, but I feel as though it's kind of straying away from the heart of what the Arkham games are. I don't feel like, or I almost felt like this was kind of, this is kind of a lazy way of saying it, but kind of Call of Dutying the game itself, if that makes sense. Like, just making it into a big action movie with all these big explosions, which just isn't what Batman is. It's at least not my impression of it. That's not what I've grown to love Batman for. So it kind of struck me the wrong way the first time I saw it, and I thought to myself then, I sure hope this is something that is set in a more linear way, where you're kind of using it at very set specific times, and you're not doing it like all the time, which is what it ended up being. And because of that, it's very easy to get tired of it real quick, which is unfortunate. That having been said, I can't really necessarily say how I would have done it differently or how I would have made it more complicated. You know, they did do things differently as the game went on, to be fair. The Arkham Knight Cloudburst boss fight was fun. Like, going against the Cobra drones was a nice, refreshing way of doing it, because you were more relying on being stealthy, or not so much stealthy, but not getting caught, because if you got caught, you were fucked. So you had to, you know, you had to be stealthy with the tank. I don't know how that works, but you had to be. It wasn't quite varying enough to justify it being such a gigantic part of the game. Once again, this is all my opinion. I'm not presenting this as objective fact. I'm just saying through my experience how I felt. But yeah, I can't really think of much else I want to say. I guess going back to the ending just real quick, like, and how I feel about all of the ending itself. I'm a little bit disappointed in how they handled Joker at the end. I liked it, but at the same time, I felt like it kind of went a bit against his character to kind of be begging Batman to not do this to him. Granted, he was facing his quote-unquote fear, and so it would make sense for him to be not quite as arrogant and quite as abrasive as he usually is. But, I don't know, it was just kind of jarring to see him, you know, begging the Batman not to, you know, send him away, essentially. Now, the Nightfall Protocol itself. Once again, like I said earlier, I like that they decided to unmask Batman. Since this is supposed to be the last game, I thought that was a nice little touch, and I felt like it would be interesting to see other people's reactions to finding out that Batman was, in fact, Bruce Wayne. But I just have a hard time rationalizing that everybody just totally buys that Bruce Wayne is dead. That it's not just coincident, like, it couldn't just be, you know, a coincidence that less than, like, probably in-game, like, maybe an hour after he's discovered to be Bruce Wayne, that once, the second he goes inside his house, it blows up, and he's dead. Like, you would think that somebody in Gotham City would be smart enough to recognize, oh yeah, this was probably planned, and he's probably not dead, which he absolutely isn't. Of course he's not dead. He's definitely alive. I'm not saying that definitively at the end there that was Bruce Wayne. I doubt it. I don't know what the hell that was. I'm guessing there was some aspect of the Scarecrow gas going on there. Oh, okay. You know what? I think I just figured it out. I think that's Jason Todd. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was Jason Todd, because he probably had access to some of Scarecrow's fear toxin, and as we saw by the end of it, Jason Todd was inevitably, or not inevitably, but eventually turned over to the Batman side and the whole thing, protecting him. So I wouldn't be extremely surprised if he's utilizing the Scarecrow's fear toxin in tandem with his own actual abilities to protect the city. I don't know. That would be interesting if that were the case, or it could just be Batman and he decided, fuck it, I want to come back. I don't care that everybody knows I'm Bruce Wayne. There's a couple different ways you can interpret that, I suppose. But regardless, going after all that, I can't think of anything else I would like to say. That's really all there is. I'm going to go ahead and skip this little thing here and see if there's anything else that we can watch but we're going to go ahead and save that for the next video, and that'll be the final video. I'll go ahead and go through all the audio files and stuff like that, and if there's any other additional cutscenes after the fact. So consider that to be sort of a bonus video, that if any of you might be interested in it. I doubt there will be much commentary, but, you know, if you're curious for all those little extra things that I haven't gone over yet, that'll be in the next one. Otherwise, this is it for the rest of you, and considering that, I guess that's about it. So, if you guys enjoyed this series, please be sure to like and subscribe and all that, and I will see you guys next time. Bullshit!